achieved.
This man is currently on the verge of making mixed martial arts history. This man is the former UFC lightweight champion, the former WEC lightweight champion, and throw in the fact that he defended his UFC lightweight title against the incoming Strikeforce lightweight champion Gilbert Melendez, and Benson Henderson has an opportunity to become the first ever to hold titles in the WEC, UFC, and Bellator if he can defeat Andrei Koreshkov this weekend to capture the Bellator welterweight champion. But the sad thing is, and I know we saw this on a meme, we saw it's kind of floating on the internet, no one is talking about it, and that's unfortunate. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we're breaking down the upcoming UFC 197 event, which will take place on April 23rd, and I will give you my 5 main card predictions for this episode of the show. I'm coming off... I have mixed emotions about my last showing. I did go 8-3. It was so devastating because it should have been 9-2 because Beneil Dariush was badly outclassing Michael Chiesa, and then unfortunately did not show enough urgency once he got put in a bad spot and got caught and submitted. That was a key fight, but nonetheless, I was kind of, because we lost... I'm making excuses. Because we lost Islam Makhachev, that really hurt because he was one of my key bets, plays and one of my top bets. And because we lost 2 other fights that were going to have bets that were available, like Lyoto Machida, like Tony Ferguson as well, fights that were probably going to have more betting value than what we were left with. It really made it difficult. We had to rely on a lot of props. Nonetheless, the bet packs didn't produce like I hoped they would, despite going 8-3. Nonetheless, I'm winning fights, and that's part of the battle. Let's hope we get that combination like we did a show ago, where we kicked ass and took names. Either way, make sure you purchase the bet packs, $12, or you can subscribe and save yourself some money if you do that for the rest of the month. Also, the polls are up. Get your votes in as to who you think is going to win each matchup. The prediction panel will be posting their predictions, so please check that out as well. They always have some good stuff and very good records. And that's all for me. We've got 5 pretty exciting main card fights, so let's get to that first one. The first fight of the night takes place in the UFC's featherweight division as Ultimate Fighter Latin America winner Yair El Pantera Rodriguez of Mexico, 7 wins and a loss, takes on Team Alpha Male's Andre Touchy Fili with a current record of 15 wins and 3 defeats. Now, Rodriguez is coming off as his 3 UFC wins, including his tough Latin America tournament victory. He took 2 wins, then he won his actual professional fight. Coming into this, Fili, he's coming off a pretty good win over another tough Latin American fighter in Gabriel Benitez. He is 3-2 in the UFC. He's alternated wins and losses since coming into the promotion, losing to an elite fighter in Max Holloway and then to a lower level guy in Godofredo Pepe. Overall, and of course with the alternating wins and losses, he is due for a loss coming to this matchup. We'll see if that plays a role. It never does, or very rarely does. Some have accused Andre Fili coming into this matchup and other fights of being kind of a choker. When he fought Max Holloway, he got submitted in a fight he was doing very well in and possibly could have been ahead in the scorecards. Against Pepe, he was significantly favored, should have probably won that matchup, and he got submitted very early. So people kind of looked at him as a choker, a guy who struggles in big spots. Physically, both are 5'11", 3-3 advantage for Fili. Rodriguez is 2 years younger, and the American has a sizable experience advantage with 18 pro bouts to just 7 for the Mexican fighter. But also, he said Rodriguez had his experience on The Ultimate Fighter, which certainly helps him as well. Now, Rodriguez is a Taekwondo black belt. There's a win by knockout, win by submission, and 4 wins by decision. His only loss coming by knockout coming back in 2012. On The Ultimate Fighter's 2 fights that led to the finals were 1 win by submission and 1 win by TKO. So he can finish, despite the fact we really haven't seen that in his UFC career. Now, for the American, he comes from, as a Team Alpha Male, very good camp. 8 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. He is 4-0 in the scorecards. He does have 1 knockout loss in his record, but it came via injury. He has 2 submission losses, the aforementioned Holloway and Godofredo Pepe. Now, looking at what Rodriguez brings in the cage, he has a very nice variety of kicks, both flashy and functional. He can do damage despite the fact they are kicks a lot of other guys can't pull off. He has more power than the numbers suggest. We saw him hurt Daniel Hooker, I believe, in that fight. I think he might have hurt Rosa as well in that matchup. He works very well from the outside because he uses a lot of those techniques. A lot of movement, attacks from different angles, exceptionally quick, throws a lot of techniques in sequence. Against Hooker, he threw a very crazy sequence, which is very difficult to defend against. He threw a punch, followed with a head kick, another punch, grabbed for a single leg, moved for a hip toss. Everything kept Hooker on the defensive. Now, statistically, 3.16 strikes landed per minute. That's solid compared to 2.02 strikes absorbed, so a very good striking exchange rate. When he fought Hooker, a predominantly big man and a fairly aggressive striker, he limited him to just 19 strikes while landing 52 of his own. So those are some pretty good numbers. Now, he was taken down 5 times in his match with Rosa, Boston Strong there. On 14 attempts, he did attack off his back and showed pretty good dexterity from that position. Caught Rosa in a pretty good triangle attempt. He showed better takedown defense against Daniel Hooker. One time Hooker got in deep, and Rodriguez showed, if you complete this, I'm going to have a guillotine waiting for you, and that's a good way to back guys off. He's pretty strong. He has some nice throws from the clinch position. He showed the ability against Hooker again to bounce right into mount. Nice wizard to defend takedown attempts. And look for him to stick some knees in there if you do spend a prolonged time in the clinch position. Now, Andre Fili, very good fighter in his own right. He's coming off a very nice right head kick stoppage of Gabriel Benitez. He hit him with a couple strikes afterwards. He throws a nice left jab. He tends to attack in straight lines, though. He's a bit of a fast starter, and he will slow down. Again, that kind of goes hand in hand with that ideal that he could be a bit of a choker. 3.86 strikes landed per minute compared to 2.71 strikes absorbed. So good numbers, a little bit closer here. Throw some nice, as I said, head kick and body kick techniques as well. He steps into his strikes. He'll mix a knee strike in as well, which can be very effective. Big thing here, again, he steps in when he throws all of his punches and is very aggressive, but can he maintain that pace? And so far we've seen him, again, drop off in fights. He scored 9 takedowns in his first 3 UFC bouts, which isn't surprising considering the camp he is coming from. Unfortunately, over his last 2 matches, which have been relatively quick, he hasn't scored any. Look for him to use a lot of clinch and trips from the inside. He will also shoot from the outside. But he doesn't have a great top game. He had a lot of trouble keeping Felipe Arantes on the mat. Benitez, he took him down once, couldn't keep him on the mat either. If he does get on the ground and gets the position established, posture up, he'll attack. He's, again, very aggressive. Could leave an arm in for a guy who's willing to attack off their back. Again, he routinely loses position and scrambles, gives, again, submission or at least damage and attack over position seems to be his forte. Against Arantes, he was taken down a couple of times. He was mounted. He had a lot of success with getting off his back with sweeps and attacks from the ground. But again, it's a bad position turning into a good position. You're not going to be able to do that against every fighter. Hooker, when he fought Rodriguez, he had a lot of success pressuring him, and I feel his aggression could replicate that, but could also leave him, open to being countered and tiring out and getting worn down. In his last fight, Fili looked a lot more composed against Benitez, not just attacking. I think that actually is going to work against him if he tries that again. I think it's going to leave a lot of opportunities for Yair to set up and attack, and that's a major issue. For Yair, I think he'll land the better strikes. He'll avoid those flurries that Fili likes to throw, defend the takedowns, possibly turn them into his favor. If he is taken out, he will attack off his back, get in top position, take advantage of the mistakes that Fili makes. I think a submission is certainly possible by Yair Rodriguez, but my prediction is Yair Rodriguez to defeat Andre Fili by decision. We jump up to the 185ers for our next matchup as the 7th-ranked Robert Whittaker of New Zealand, Ultimate Fighter Smashes winner, 16 wins and 4 losses, takes on the 13th-ranked Brazilian Rafael Natal with a current record of 21 wins, 6 losses, and 1 draw. Now, Whittaker, he's really found his stride since moving up to 185 pounds, formerly fighting at welterweight. He has 3 straight victories in the division, and he's currently riding a 4-fight winning streak. He does have a win over Uriah Hall in that mix. Also, a Vick person that Natal recently beat on his current streak as well. Both fighters are 6 feet tall, 3-inch reach advantage for the Brazilian. Whittaker is a sizable 8 years younger. Now, for Rafael, he's a BJ black belt. He has 4 wins by knockout. He is 8-0 in fights ended by submission, and a surprising 9-2 in the scorecards. Now, the big number, 4 losses by knockout. We'll talk about that momentarily. For Whittaker, black belt in karate, BJJ purple belt, 7 wins by knockout, 5 wins by submission. He is 2-3 on the scorecards. Not a great record there. He does have 1 loss each by knockout and submission. Now, those 4 knockout losses for Rafael Natal, the 2 most recent coming against 2 guys not really known for their knockout power in Tim Kennedy and Andrew Craig. 3 of his 4 losses have come by KO, so he's been knocked unconscious, and that's certainly concerning. It tells you if a guy can tag him who's got some power, he's going to be in some trouble. And you mix in his cardio issues where he tends to slow down and become a little bit sloppier. That's certainly an area for concern. Now, for Whittaker, some of the numbers we're going to look at here, he averages 1.75 more strikes per minute than what Natal lands. He also gives up 1.97 strikes more per minute, but the first stat means more because that means he's going to be the busier fighter. Just because previous fighters have landed more strikes against him does not mean Rafael Natal is going to replicate those numbers. In fact, I don't anticipate that he will. 92% of Whittaker's opponents' takedown attempts have failed, which is a very solid number. He averages 2.8. So for Natal, he averages 2.84 takedowns at a 36% completion rate. So not a really good number, but he still has pretty good takedowns overall. We'll talk about them momentarily as well. Now for Natal, over his last 8 UFC wins, he has scored 26 takedowns, getting his opponent to the mat. Well, it doesn't seem like it's over. It's still an important facet of his offense. In his last 3 losses, he has just 3 takedowns. When Whittaker fought Court McGee, who's the fighter of all the people he's faced in recent memory, and that was at welterweight, keep in mind, he only landed McGee landed 1 takedown in 8 attempts, which tells you that, Whittaker's got a pretty good takedown defense, but, again, Natal's a different grappler, has different wrestling than Court McGee. When Natal fought his last fight against Kevin Casey, he caught a couple of his takedowns by catching Casey coming forward, attacking, changing levels, and taking them down. He did the same thing against Uriah Hall, which is a very effective technique. It's that power double. It's a reactive takedown technique. It uses your opponent's momentum against them. They don't have that base underneath them because all they're thinking about and all they're doing is looking to engage. Very good technique. Once he gets on top, he has a pretty good top game. He doesn't have a lot of submissions in recent memory, with his last one coming 3 years ago. And at times, he tends to forego his grappling offense in his grappling game because he just falls in love with the striking, which can be a mistake. Case in point, the 4 knockout losses. I think it's going to be harder for him to land takedowns against Robert Whittaker, who tends to be much quicker. He doesn't telegraph his strikes, and he throws really long strikes. He doesn't throw his whole body forward. He stretches himself out and lands strikes, but keeps his body back and his trunk back, which is it's an effective technique to shut down those reactive takedowns. Now, Whittaker, when he is striking, he has power, throws a lot of straight punches, long punches. I just talked about a stiff left jab. He has a nice step-off left hook. When he fought Hester, he dropped him with a left hook, straight right combination. He doesn't throw anything more, not a lot of big volume combinations, a lot of 2 strikes and done. He drives very well into his strikes with his power. He can cover ground as well, and he does a nice job of punching and exiting from different angles, so it keeps opponents from countering or looking for those takedowns, which I think will give Natal trouble. He does move backwards, on the retreat, and then he will launch forward into attacks, but he doesn't in a manner that he doesn't telegraph it, which is nice. He throws some kicks as well. Not a very effective kicker, though. Natal is a good kicker. It's probably one of his best striking techniques. He tends to throw his hands in big looping punches, and I think that's going to give Whittaker a lot of opportunities to come right down the middle with his counter strikes or with his initial engagements. And Natal's output tends to wane as the fight goes, as he slows down. For Rafael, he needs to find a way to keep the volume up without opening up too much, and working his wrestling, working his grappling as much as possible. That's going to be difficult because that's going to put a lot of strain on him. If Natal can establish his takedowns and score points, it could also back Whittaker off when they are striking. But overall, Robert Whittaker is the better striker. He's the quicker man. He has more power. He has the better chin, and he has the superior cardio. Even though it's not as good as a lot of people think it is, as he does also slow down a little bit, his cardio is much better than Rafael Natal's. I think Whittaker's going to limit Natal's takedowns, land the better strikes. He probably will hurt him at some point, and my prediction is Robert Whittaker to defeat Rafael Natal by knockout. In the UFC's lightweight division, we have an absolute awesome fight as the former UFC and WEC lightweight champion Anthony Showtime Pettis, currently ranked 3rd in the division with a record of 18 wins and 4 losses, takes on the Brazilian, the number 9th ranked Edson Jr. Barboza with a record of 16 wins and 4 defeats. Now, this is a huge fight for both men. It's very big for Pettis because he has lost back-to-back fights, going back to his title fight loss against RDA, and his relevance in the division is fading quickly. And another loss here, and he will be in some significant trouble. Now, in his last matchup against Eddie Alvarez, which I predicted him to lose, I picked Alvarez to win, and he played it out perfectly. It kind of had that air of that post-title fight letdown. Pettis did not look to be himself. He lost in one-sided fashion. Lose that title that can be extremely discouraging, and he just didn't show up like a lot of people expected him against Alvarez, but I don't know if that is 100% the case. For Barboza, this is another opportunity he has to win a high-profile fight. He seems to come up short in these matchups. He lost to Tony Ferguson, he lost to Michael Johnson, he lost to Donald Cerrone. The biggest wins, the biggest names he's beaten, Evan Dunham and Bobby Green, still 2 very noteworthy names, but certainly he needs another win like an Anthony Pettis to really get himself to that next level. Barboza, 1 inch taller, 3-inch reach advantage. Pettis is 1 year younger. And something for Showtime here, this is a 3-month turnaround, which is not abnormal, but it certainly hasn't been the case in a lot of his fights. He was off for 10 months for the Eddie Alvarez fight, 16 months before he defended his title against Gilbert Melendez. Prior to losing the title, though, it was a 3-month turnaround, so certainly he had a better turnaround in his prior to losing the title fight. So this isn't abnormal, but certainly he's known for sitting out a lot. For Barboza, he's a black belt in Taekwondo and Muay Thai, BJJ purple belt. 10 wins by knockout, 1 loss overall, which came against Jamie Varner. 1-2 on the scorecard, 1-2 in fights ended by submission, and a pretty solid 5-1 record in fights going the distance. For Anthony Pettis, third-degree black belt in Taekwondo, BJJ brown belt. He has 7 knockouts on his record, 8 wins by submission. He has never been finished, but he is 3-4 on the scorecard, so take that for what you will. Both guys have flashy striking techniques. Both have power. I give Pettis the edge in submission grappling. He's caught some nice submissions off his back, most notably against Benson Henderson to win the title and Gilbert Melendez to defend the title. And we don't see a ton of grappling by Barboza, certainly some, but not. He's not a guy who's going to go out and look for the takedown and look to submit guys off. It's not something he prefers. Other things we're talking about here, the chin of Edson Barboza certainly is an issue. He has struggled with pressure at times. He has issues with fighters moving forward and attacking. That seems to be kind of the MO to beating him. We saw Michael Johnson do it, and we certainly saw Tony Ferguson do it as well. Jamie Varner also had success with that similar style. And even going back to Ross Pearson had some moments in that fight. For Pettis, kind of some similarities. He's had issues with those gritty, grinding fights. He needs time to attack and set up his offense. Melendez, I picked Melendez to upset him, mauled him in the first round, really took it to him, got caught in the second round. For Rafael dos Anjos, he took it to him for 5 rounds, beat him up, took the title away. Eddie Alvarez, similar gritty fight, takedowns, clinch fighting, and just roughed him up and outworked him to take the 3-round decision. For Pettis, he is 1-3 in his last 4 decisions, with his only victory coming as a split decision win over Jeremy Stevens. Not good. He lost that opening round to Gilbert Melendez before submitting him. He finished Joe Lozon, Donald Cerrone, and Benson Henderson very quickly before the fight could really settle in. So that really creates those questions of how does his style doesn't translate well over longer fights. Is he a bit of a front runner? And the numbers would indicate yes, he is. He's 3-4 in decisions. He's a guy that if he's not smoking guys, he is struggling to distance himself with his style. In his last 3 losses, he's given up 20 takedowns. He was taken down multiple times by Eddie Alvarez. He was getting pushed into the cage and controlled there and busted up. That's really not Edson Barboza's style, so we'll see if that plays into Anthony Pettis' hands. What Pettis likes to do, lots of kicks, good leg dexterity. Wonder about his fight IQ, though. Against Alvarez, he was struggling early to separate. He separated, and he threw a big wheel kick and immediately got taken down, which is certainly a questionable offensive maneuver. Again, in that matchup, he was really hesitant to pull the trigger at times. He landed, some strikes, but again, he was letting Alvarez get off first predominantly, and that's something you don't want to see happening, is letting a fighter let his opponent lead the dance, and not effectively countering either. He doesn't have it seems like, even though he hits hard, and he's got some big knockouts, like, for example, ask Joe Lozon, who got knocked out, Donald Cerrone taking that body shot as well. At times, he doesn't seem like he has a ton of power, and a lot of his strikes are not thrown to do damage. A lot of single strikes. He can strike moving backwards, but if he can't knock his opponent out, he tends to be a bit of a point fighter. Please don't shoot me for saying that. It's just my observation. Now, when you look at Edson Barboza, Ferguson was pushing the pace, and Barboza was firing back, very well. And again, that's not Pettis' style to push that pace and be aggressive and be in Edson's face. Edson does a very nice job of digging to the body. He has those brutal kicks to the body, to the legs, to the head. Very effective as well. Far more impactful than I believe Pettis throws overall. At least more frequently he throws impactful strikes. I think he'll target Pettis' legs, take away those legs, take away that dexterity a little bit if he does some damage. Overall, I like Barboza's lethal striking. He's a much more lethal striker. When he fought Paul Felder, he was able to set up his attacks, and he averages 1.59 more strikes per minute than Pettis. He does get hit more, but again, his offensive output is significant, both the impact and the volume. He throws more often, and he hits harder. He's not a real takedown threat. He did get a couple takedowns in his last matchup, but still, that's not his thing. It's the offense. If his chin holds up, the numbers suggest he can win this fight based on what he does without making any changes. Pettis will need to either step up his game, increase that work rate, or knock him out or submit him. He has to stop him if he doesn't up that work rate and up that intensity with which he strikes. Pettis could be motivated after back-to-back losses. He wanted that quick turnaround. He won't have a big striking advantage in this matchup, which is something he's not used to. And I think Edson Barboza is going to do a lot of damage. Is going to play it a lot like the Paul Felder matchup, where I think Barboza is going to get his strikes off, Pettis is going to get his strikes off, and Barboza is going to be the slightly more effective striker. So my prediction is Edson Barboza to defeat Anthony Pettis by decision. In the co-main event, we have our actual only real title on the line, theoretically, we'll talk about that momentarily, as the champion, Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson, the only champion the UFC has ever known in the flyweight division, 22 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw, takes on the Olympic gold medalist in wrestling, the number 2 ranked Henry, the Messenger Cejudo, undefeated at 10-0. Now, Johnson is running out of potential opponents. If you look at his list of fighters he has beaten, he's beaten the number 1 guy twice, the number 3 guy twice, the number 5, 6, 7, and 11 opponents, also beating Chris Carriazo, who's retired. Who is left for him to face after Henry Cejudo? Bantamweight super fights, most likely. Dominic Cruz will be an excellent fight for him, a rematch. I love that first matchup. But either way, Johnson's done a lot. We have the Ultimate Fighter 24 situation where it looked like the winner of that was going to get a shot at the title, and that idea got scrapped. I'd like to see make it a comeback show, and they're not going to do it. But or even screw the Ultimate Fighter, hold a tournament. Take a bunch of guys, Formiga, McCall, Makovsky, Reyes, Ortiz, Scoggins, Borg, and hell, Sergio Pettis. Guys that either haven't had a shot yet, or, I guess one of the guys have had a shot yet. Give them an opportunity to get in there. 8-man tournament, winner gets a shot at the title. At least give us some interest with names we know. For Cejudo, coming into this fight, he is an Olympic gold medalist in freestyle wrestling all the way back in 2008. So that's the one big angle they like. He has reasonably solid wins over Chris Carriazo, Chico Camus, and Jussier Formiga at flyweight. He's undefeated. These are the angles they're playing. But keep in mind, he went to split decision with Formiga, who is a very good fighter in his own right, but he is not Demetrious Johnson. 6 consecutive decision wins since he's moved up to better quality of opposition, since moving to fight in Legacy for the Challenger. Another big thing with the Challenger, he has made weight 3 times in a row after pulling out of his debut because of weight issues and being forced to fight at bantamweight for his official UFC debut. He also missed weight in back-to-back fights before debuting. So those are all concerning scenarios. Certainly going into a title fight for a card that's already lost one of its headliners. Will he be able to make weight? Will the cut be tough? If it is, oh boy, he's going to be in for a long or potentially short night. For Demetrious Johnson, we very much know what he's all about. Technically sound, still seems very motivated despite his dominance over the division. He has finished 4 of his last 6 fights despite being talked about as being a non-entertaining opponent. He has 3 wins by submission in that stretch, 2 in the final round, so he just keeps working and wears guys out. And that's what he is. That's one of his most effective weapons, is his pace. He keeps going. They can't hold on, and they either lose a decision and they're exhausted, or they get finished because they just can't defend anymore. Looking at his stat lines, 3.46 strikes landed per minute, so not a huge volume guy, but he averages 1.81 strikes absorbed, and he really shuts down a lot of his opponent's offense, avoids 65% of what his opponent throws. So that's exhausting in itself to have to throw that much to land less than 2 strikes per minute. 3.62 takedowns at a 53% completion rate, pretty solid numbers, and 65% takedown defense, so pretty good. Now, Cejudo's stats overall are similar, but over a smaller sample size and against lesser competition. Looking at the Challenger, how does he win this fight? His wrestling has to be his key to victory. That's what he does best. 9 takedowns in his last 3 fights. He's starting to work it in a little bit more, but he had 6 against Chris Carriazo, who's notoriously struggled with takedown defense. Against Chico Camus, who's a very feisty fighter who should never have been cut, he went 1 for 15 in his takedown attempts. That is, Camus made that into a dogfight and really did a nice job of shutting down his wrestling. I don't think Henry's wrestling is translated as well to the UFC as it could. But in situations like this, he could rise to the occasion. Johnson has given up 5 takedowns over his last 9 fights. That's not big, but that is something to hold on to. He scored 43 in that realm, so that gives you the kind of the ratio there. Now, looking at Ali Bogatinov, he put him on his back twice in that matchup. Ian McCall in the draw that they originally, I think Johnson actually lost when they were crowning the original champion back in that tournament, 4-fighter tournament. McCall landed 4 takedowns in that fight, and Dominic Cruz put him on his back 10 times, so it's not impossible. And fighters with lesser credentials than Henry Cejudo have taken him down. He could take Demetrious Johnson down. He, at the very least, Cejudo should be able to avoid getting put on his back, but you have Demetrious Johnson, could use that GSP mentality or that John Jones versus DC attitude. I can take you down. I have better wrestling despite what you have done in your past. I think overall, when you look at this, the pace of Johnson will simply be too much, especially if the cut goes bad for Cejudo. He's never fought a 5-round fight, and that's going to be a brutal scenario for him if he has any issues with the weight cut. For Cejudo, he has decent Muay Thai, but he's not ready for this level. Decent striking, but he's not ready for this level. It's a massive step up. He doesn't have anybody that's even close. Didn't fight a John Dodson. Didn't fight a, Joseph Benavidez. Didn't fight anybody on that top level that would bridge the gap between what Cejudo's been doing and who he's fighting now. He doesn't have the power of a Dodson to knock him out, or the speed to be that threat that we saw in the first fight between John Dodson and Demetrious Johnson, which certainly is concerning for the challenger here. This could be a trap fight for DJ. The division looks cleared out. Does he overlook his opponent here? Does he make mistakes? Does he get caught? Do we have that Henan Brow, TJ Dillashaw underdog story in the works? I don't think so. The fight could set up big bantamweight fights. I'd like to see DJ move up and give someone else a chance to run this division. Again, if that's the case, I want a flyweight tournament to set it up. 8, 16, I don't care. Make it big. Johnson outworks them, tires them out, possibly lands some takedowns later in the fight to really prove his point. I could see a submission for the champion by wearing him down. He still won't get any respect if he puts him away, even with a brutal first-round knockout lit against Benavidez. Nonetheless, my prediction is Demetrious Johnson to defeat Henry Cejudo by decision. Moving now to the main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's light heavyweight division, and we will crown an interim light heavyweight champion. It doesn't excite me that much as this original fight did, but, it's still going to be a fight. The number one contender, the number one ranked fighter and former champion, the man who didn't lose his title but yet was stripped of it, Johnny Bones Jones, returns to action, 21 wins and 1 loss, to take on the 6th ranked Ovince St. Preux with 19 wins and 7 losses. He is stepping in to replace Daniel Cormier. As I said, this was originally supposed to be the Cormier-Jones rematch, which was much anticipated. DC had to pull out due to injury, and OSP stepped in and took that opportunity. So, there are some scenarios to look at here. John Jones certainly could have a letdown, not facing this hated rival, the man he wants to fight and beat. That could create a letdown. He is coming in off a 15-month layoff. There are a laundry list of outside distractions, getting arrested, all the accusations and things that are flying around, plus the issues with Cormier also could be creating distractions for him. The opponent change. OSP is not Daniel Cormier. Those all could play roles in John Jones not putting on the performance that he needs to win this fight. OSP is a very dangerous opponent. Let's not kid ourselves. For Ovince St. Preux, he has a massive opportunity, but he has had a very short camp, yet just 3 weeks to get ready for the biggest fight of his career. He did fight February 6th, so it's not like he's been out for a long time and then he's getting a rushed preparation for this matchup. If you look at the list of people who could have been picked from to replace Daniel Cormier, outside of Rumble Johnson, who was not ready for the opportunity, Jones has beaten Gus, he has beaten Glover, he has beaten Bader, he has beaten Rashad Evans, he has beaten Shogun Hua. The next guys on the list, Jimmy Manoa, Little Nog, Patrick Cummins. So the only viable opponent that he hasn't already faced and was ranked in the top 10 was Ovince St. Preux. Now we look at the 3 common opponents these two have. They both fought Glover. Obviously, Jones beat all 3. They both fought Glover Teixeira. OSP got submitted by Glover. Bader took a pretty one-sided decision from OSP as well. The only victory that OSP has over an opponent that John Jones fought and also defeated was his TKO victory over Shogun Hua. And certainly they fought in different stages as Jones took his title away when Shogun appeared to be, still close to his prime, at least his UFC prime. Physically, Jones, 6'4", he is 1 inch taller. He'll have a 4-inch reach advantage, which is not his normal massive advantage, but still, it's significant. I think it'll affect OSP more than anything, and Johnny Jones is 4 years younger. So what does Ovince St. Preux do well? I think he's incredibly physical, he has power, he's certainly strong, and he has a pretty good top position submission game, which is worth talking about. What are the negatives? His cardio is not good. It's not terrible, but I've seen him slow down as early as part of the way through the second round. He muscles his punches, he throws very physical, his techniques are very physical, in orientation, and that certainly can take a lot out of you. He's not slow, but he certainly is not fleet of foot. He tends to plod forward. His defensive wrestling is very weak as well. Those are all things that are certainly exploitable by the former and potentially future champion. How does Ovince St. Preux win this fight? Well, John Jones could certainly be compromised with a list of issues listed above. For OSP, he needs to go for broke early on. He needs to try and get in, land power, hurt him. Do not let John Jones settle in and get comfortable. Keep it in his face, use his power, use his physicality, hope to hurt him early. He might only have a round of really pressing it, maybe a round and a half. Probably, if adrenaline keeps going, he might get 2 out of it, but it's all or nothing early. I do not think he can win a decision. I think he needs to hurt, unless he really badly hurts him and just keeps on going, but I really think he has to go for it early. Over a long fight, he just can't sustain that output to win a decision. I don't think it's going to happen. Now, for Jones, he's only going to have a slight reach advantage, and a lot of people are pointing to that and saying, but the thing you keep in mind here is that I think Jones is the more equipped fighter to deal with that. OSP is used to having a pretty good reach advantage as well, and now it's not just a small one he has, now it's a deficit, which is something that's very abnormal for him. As I said, OSP has power, but he certainly does not have the better striking skills. He lacks creativity in his striking, and he becomes far less effective as fights progress. I look for John Jones to use his clinch game to wear OSP down, limit the chances of getting tagged at distance with that punching power. Jones should have the wrestling advantage on both sides offensively and defensively. I think he'll be able to score takedowns at will and put Ovince St. Preux on his back. His top position game is so strong, and OSP is not good off his back. It's not a position he likes to be. He either gets stuck there or gives up position in desperation attempts to get up. Look for Jones to cut through his guard, break him down with strikes. He's going to land elbows and really bust him up and either go for the finish with just those relentless elbows, if you will, or set up a submission as well. Go for something like a paintbrush or some kind of arm attack is what I'm anticipating. he likes to do. OSP is a very raw talent. He's still improving, but he still has a lot of holes in his game. Tough test. He's a tough test for 85% of the division. Unfortunately, John Jones does not fall into that 85%. Glover and Bader certainly exposed the wrestling weaknesses. So did Giger Mousasi way back in the Strikeforce. Jones will do that and then some. Jones, though, he needs to remain focused, fight smart. There are some concerns over the added weight and how he's bulked up. I don't think it'll be a huge ordeal here because I don't think Ovince St. Preux is going to be fast enough to take advantage of anything there. I think Jones will be looking to make a statement, and my prediction is John Jones to defeat Ovince St. Preux by TKO. So those are my 5 main card predictions for UFC 197. We get a nice break after this, so certainly we'll enjoy that. Consider buying the bet packs if you want to. It would be fantastic. I greatly appreciate it. All of my preliminary predictions, as always, available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Please check that out. Follow me on Twitter at KO_predictions is my Twitter handle. I try and tweet as much as possible during fights, but unfortunately, a lot of times it falls. I have 3 children now, so it falls during bedtime and all the other things that are going on. So obviously, that's my priority. That's what comes first. Once they go to bed, I try my best to tweet and say things, brag about what I'm doing right, bitch about what I'm doing wrong, what other fighters aren't doing, and so on and so forth. Try and keep it entertaining. Also, follow me on Facebook. I like posting a lot of news, and I repost a lot of things. So if you're looking to follow somebody on Facebook, why not follow me? It's fun. Anything else worth talking about? No, that's good for now. Oh, yes. Global Warriors putting on a fantastic show. May 28th. If you are in the area, Brantford area, certainly consider purchasing tickets. Jonathan Brookins will be competing. The gentleman Josh Hill will be competing. Alex Ricci. A lot of good talent. Malcolm Gordon also on the card, a good Canadian flyweight who has a win over Chris Kelades, who's fighting on this card for the UFC. A lot of good talent is fighting at this. Canadian talent. Certainly, if you're interested in some local Ontario MMA, the best mixed martial arts in Ontario, check it out, and I'll post more information on all of my pages. You'll be able to follow me there. That's all for now. I rambled on a lot. Thanks for tuning in as always, guys, and I'll see you after the bell. Take care.